Hello and welcome back after lunch. And if you're like me, you're just full of energy. So we've got a really interesting panel coming up. I'm Katy Howell from independent social media agency Immediate Future. And like many agencies, we're in growth. We're winning, which is good. But we also need to hire and onboard and get up to speed with more awesome staff. In fact, 80% of businesses in the UK are planning to take on more staff in the next 12 months, and UK employers are going to invest £9 billion in recruitment this year. So our biggest challenge, both agency and, by the way, client side, is filling the skills gap to ensure continued growth. So today I am joined by an amazing team, an amazing panel to talk about how do we attract and keep your best new business talent and beyond. So let me introduce you to Ali Wallace, a specialist headhunter for marketing, digital and technology roles in the UK and globally, founder and director of DNA. Ingrid Olmesdahl, Global Director of Alliances, EMEA Partnership, GTM lead Ogilvy, and a member of the BEMA Sustainability Council. Sera, Holland, UK Deputy CEO at Ketchum, member of WACL and Bloom, yay, and board trustee of Coaches. I'm never going to say that. Sorry.
Endometriosis UK. Nearly there, Katy. Nearly there.
I was full pelt at that. So, and last but not least, we've got Stephen Kenwright, Rise at 7, CCO, and co-founder. Hello, all my panelists, and I'm just going to stop talking now and ask the first question, which is cutting to the chase. Is it all about the money? What are the real challenges of recruitment and retention? Do you want to kick off, Sera?
Yeah, I think, well, firstly, it would be slightly remiss of me, I think, on equal pay day, or unequal pay day as it should be known, to also say that sometimes in this discussion, I think we need to bring in that sometimes it should be a bit about the money. And that actually when we're thinking about the whole package, so when we're thinking about value and we're thinking about growth and flexibility and opportunity, we're also all being really realistic about the level reset that we need to have. And I think for me, sometimes we can use the phrase, it isn't all about the money, and we can talk about the package and what talent are looking for without really also addressing the fact that there is inequality and we need kind of equal and kind of fair pay, my teeth in, to be part of that discussion. So for me, I think it's a little bit of both, and it's about a whole package view.
Love that. Ingrid?
Sera, I totally agree with you, and I love that you raised that point. I think it's fantastic. I will say though that in the last 2 years, is it 2 years since COVID? I do think that people's priorities have really changed. There's a huge amount of data on how people are looking more for purpose from their roles. And I know we'll come on to the kind of great resignation as part of that. But I do think that money, yes, of course, I think it's absolutely important to consider. But certainly as people's priorities have changed and purpose becomes more important, that actually thinking about what it is that your company can provide, especially as an agency, we're in a fantastic position to do really purposeful work in some of the areas, or really kind of reshape and rethink about what is the new culture and the new way that can help people not only come into your business, but actually stay there in the long term.
Yeah, very good point. Stephen?
I'd agree. And I would say that it's simultaneously all about the money and not about the money at all, because I kind of think of it in the sense of the money is either there or it isn't. You're either feeling like you're paid fairly or you aren't. And if you are feeling like you're paid fairly, and there are lots of agencies, clients, employers all around who will pay people fairly now, and maybe that wasn't always the case, especially when people were very limited geographically to where they might be able to work. As long as that box is ticked for a lot of people, they're willing to forgo the fact that they could earn a lot more in some various places. And there's some really, really huge salaries being thrown around for people who don't necessarily have the experience to be able to back that up, basically. And people are willing to kind of step aside and ignore that for the fact that they've got as much money as they feel like they deserve, at least, and they are looking for something besides that. And I do think it comes down to purpose, but I don't think it's all social purpose. I think it's purpose for the business generally, and feeling like you're contributing something meaningful. Meaningful means different things to different people, and some people are all about the environment, some people aren't. Some people are all about social change, some people aren't. Some people are all just about feeling like they're winning. It could mean a lot of things to different people.
Fantastic. Me now, Katie?
Yes, please. Sorry, I thought you were going to start. So.
Sorry. So obviously we are at the forefront of, we're living it on a minute by minute, hour by hour situation with obviously working with a lot of clients and placing a lot of people in the industry. And we are seeing a lot of people obviously wanting, talking about the Great Resignation, Ingrid, people looking for something new because they've potentially been in a job for 5 years, where Brexit's led them to stay, and then obviously then COVID. But and people are now being obviously counter-offered quite heavily. So you say it is about the money, but quite often these people, they're not staying. Then they really don't want to stay in that business, and it's not because they don't like it. They've generally outgrown it. I think business owners need to allow those people to go and move into other businesses and, grow into different roles and learn. And, there's plenty of other issues around it. Businesses bringing people back from working from home. How does that work? How does the hybrid offer work? Some businesses are bringing people back full time and saying, you've got to work in the office full time. I don't quite agree with that, but that it is happening. But it's the businesses that are able to work to every level, because you've got the young people wanting to be in an office, the old people like myself wanting that flexibility around your kids and your life and your lifestyle and balance. And that's not about money. That's about you get paid back a lot more if you can do those sorts of things. There's loads more, to be honest.
Let's dig into that, because I'm with you, Ali. There is, and in fact, I was thinking when we were planning for this, I was thinking about back in the 90s when I started in an agency, everybody wanted to work in an agency. It was the place to go. It was some kind of it was the magic kingdom of careers back then. And then along came the kind of digital agency and the foosball tables and the crazy and wacky kind of places you used to work and offices. But how do we, in the modern age, as we head into 2022, how can we attract the right talent, not only that has the skills but fits our culture? I don't know who wants to kick off first.
I would say it's about intentionally designing a culture and accepting that not everyone is going to be attracted to that culture if there is a culture. So by definition, that's how you do things. That's who you are as a business. And you should stand out. You should be different. And you can't expect that 100% of the workforce, or to be honest, even 10% of the workforce are going to want to be in your business. I think it's about trying to attract the right people, exactly like you say, Katie. But to find the right people, you need to know who you are first, and you need to be, in that case, really intentional about who you're not. So some of the decisions that we have to make as business leaders now about office or no office or some office, all of those things are really impactful on the type of people that we would attract. So my agency's only 2.5 years old, and we've been in a pandemic for nearly all of that, and we've been pretty vocal about we're office first. So as soon as we can get back to an office, we will. We don't expect everyone to be there all the time, but we're investing in making a building a great place for people to be and for people to socialize, and the kind of offshoots and what that means for culture, what that means for attracting staff. It means you attract people who want to socialize, you turn off people who don't want to socialize, and you just need to accept the fact that that's how it's going to be.
Totally. What do you think, Sera?
Yeah, I guess I'd first like to make a plea. We all still talk about the 90s. I personally, neither my liver or my eyebrows could take it if we went back to those days.
No,
So making a plea was not a good time and was not a good look for any of you in the audience who also lived through it. So I think it's a really important point, as Stephen just touched on, to note that the role that we play as agencies has changed. So naturally, the way we play that role is going to have evolved as well. You know, again, we've all sort of touched on it. There's just more options. There's more opportunities. People now don't even see our industry as their only lane that they can stay in. People are moving flexibly between our industry, TV and film platforms, tech. It's really fluid. So I think what we have to I totally agree about the intentional design. We really have to purposely think about how we want to make our agencies accessible and inclusive, and what kind of talent, and be really purposeful about that. It takes investment, it takes hard work. You have to have a plan. This is no longer it's no longer if you build it, they will come, as it used to be back in the day where people were queuing up outside. We're in a competitive environment now for talent. And so I think it's really about making sure that, we put that investment in. The one thing I would just call out, I know certainly at Ketchum it's not this way, and I'm sure it's not for anyone else in this panel, but sometimes we still use the phrase culture fit as code for more of the same. And I think we all also need to recognize that we need to pull in people from different skill sets and backgrounds across the piece if, as agencies, we're going to keep fighting that kind of competitive game.
Ingrid?
On this one, I don't have a huge amount to add, but I'll reference a personal experience. I've been in agencies for a number of years, from a tiny startup to some middle-sized agencies, and then I moved to Microsoft, and now being back in an agency, it's absolutely clear that it is the right place for me, and that the culture, whether it's a big agency or a small one, there's something about the work that agencies do and the energy that they provide. And so I think that that's really important. And the challenge is that not everybody has figured out whether they are or aren't part of that. But I do think that when Katy, you say it's not like it was in the 90s, and there are some challenges, actually some people really thrive on that. So the energy of the high highs and getting through it together is really different from cultures in other organizations. And I think it is also identifying what are those nuggets about agency work, never mind about your agency, that you can bottle up and help communicate to people through that journey, so that you don't have talent coming in and 6 months later being like, oh hell, this isn't for me.
Oh, I think that is so true. I always tell my interviewees at the beginning, this is a partnership. You have to like us as much as we like you. Don't you think so, Ali? Because it can't be just all about foosball tables, can it?
No, it can't. There's a real life cycle that takes place in the bringing on board talent, attracting talent. So you've got the recruitment, obviously. Whether you've got a great in-house team, or if you're not that big and you've got great partners, make sure that those partners really understand and know your culture, what your proposition is, what your USPs are. Make sure that they've met everybody in that business, because that's the best way. In the end of the day, we're selling your businesses for you. And there's no way that you can touch the amount of talent that we do and can in our network. Obviously, onboarding is massive. generally the businesses at the moment, they're hiring like frenzy, and then you understand that their onboarding isn't an onboarding process; it's a hit the ground running process, and that's going to really affect everybody, because people are going to talk about that. Development, retention, training, and even offboarding, learning from the people that are leaving your business to work out how you can attract the best people in the future.
Do you know, that's so true. We've had so much more success since, we did this a few years ago. We have a really, really detailed onboarding process, and it made a huge amount of difference, not just to the individual who was being onboarded, but actually to everybody in the business. It was amazing. I'm well on for that. And
could I just ask one question quickly?
Yeah.
Sorry, Katy, because Stephen, obviously your business has grown hugely. I don't know many businesses that have grown that much in COVID, probably none. I'd love to know what your secret sauce has been, because you've obviously been able to attract an enormous amount of talent, and I think it's a great learning and a bit of a case study on this.
We had a few things go our way, definitely, but a few things that we chose early on that have helped us massively. One was the location. So as much as we talk a great deal about location doesn't matter, it does actually. And I know 80% of UK agencies are intended to keep their office, so there's still going to be somewhat of a hub for a lot of people, even if they aren't in there all the time. But we chose Sheffield because there was one big agency here and it wasn't doing well, and there were lots of small agencies here, and that's very unusual in the mixture around us. And Manchester is a big creative hub, Leeds is a big digital hub, Nottingham's got a lot of finance businesses, among other things as well. Sheffield doesn't have all of that stuff, but it does have 2 universities and nowhere for those people to go. And I know that because I was one of them. I left university, I went to Manchester, tried to get back, went to Leeds, tried to get back, went to Nottingham. So we knew that there was a talent pool there that no one was going for as a starting point. We then made a big noise when we arrived and said, this is who we are and this is who we're not. If you want to work with clients like this in this sort of way, then we're the agency for you. But if you're not, that's absolutely fine. And naturally, 1 or 2 people in most of those agencies raised their hand and said, yeah, I'd love to join you guys. And we made a big effort to get to know people in the local area as well. Then we hire a lot of graduates. So we invest a lot in training internally. So talking about onboarding process, there's onboarding in the sense of the first couple of weeks and get people oriented to the business and what the way of doing things actually is. But then there's ongoing training so that people stick around, and also that people can get up to speed and continually improve as well. And we intentionally decided that we would be hiring young people who are maybe in their first job, but certainly, probably no more than 6 months of experience. And that's where we were going to invest our time and money. And that's why we've got an office that can hold 100 people, because we thought we would get a kind of community around those particular graduates as well. So I think one of the things that's certainly true is throughout the pandemic, and certainly for the first half of it, we were the only game in town. No one else was hiring. No one was hiring anyone with no experience. And we're in this obviously talent crunch now, where actually the only people with 2 years of experience who everyone needs right now as an account manager to handle whatever business they've got were the people that were hired by agencies like us at the beginning of the pandemic. So we invested upfront, bringing in people as fast as we could, more people than we needed. And we're now in a position that we don't have to hire quite as frantically, because we've got an extra 25% of a workforce on top of what we really need, so we can fill up as we go along, basically. So lots of wonderful, happy coincidences occurred during the way there, but there was some thought process behind it, I think.
Oh, I love that.
Amazing.
Does anybody else have any stories like that about how they've pushed to hire, or their organisations have done something a bit different?
We have. We're actually the other end of the scale. Actually, it's like a completely the other end of the scale, whereby obviously COVID was pretty tough in recruitment, but for 3 years previous to that, I decided that I wanted to have a work from anywhere model. So at the time when we decided it, there was lots of people going, "Why are you doing that? It's really odd." It obviously paid dividends moving into COVID, and everything worked, all our systems worked. And actually the people that we are attracting in terms of what we do are far more senior people that have got big networks, people that understand people, know people, have probably worked in another industry, and bring that commercial experience into their job. And it's because it's a consultancy role. So that, that's the other side. But the key thing for us is that, like you, Stephen, we're doing a lot of onboarding, a lot of training. It's really important because even a lot of people with experience, they might not have they've got the knowledge and experience and network, but they might not have the skill set in terms of tech and systems and processes. And you have to, train them in the ways of working. So it's very similar. We've nothing like 200, but we've gone from, a couple to probably 13 people now, in quite quick speed. So something that we've definitely learned from.
Yeah, I think we're all finding and trying new models, and just to those listening at the moment and watching at the moment, please do ask questions, because this not being able to grow is going to hold up your business development, because if you haven't got the staff to do the work, your BD is going to have to slow down. So it's really important. But another aspect to this, which Ali and I had talked about in the past, is the speed at which recruitment is happening now. And I wondered, Ali, if you can just kind of expand on that, because it's speed, but you don't want to hire the wrong person. This is not bums on seats, is it?
No, it isn't. But everybody in this room will understand that you have a client need, you have a retained client or whatever else, and you haven't got those people, or you're given a huge amount of business. You're expected as an agency to be able to click your fingers and magic those people up somehow, or in whatever way you can. So we actually invested in a video platform that takes away the first stage interview, and it allows those candidates to be able to video themselves to a certain list of questions. It saves a huge amount of time for the C-suite, so everybody can actually see those interviews. We're talking more senior exec level here, so they can meet them, see them, understand them. People are on holiday, they can sit and watch the video by the pool because that person's away, and it's speeding up the process, not slowing it down as it used to be, where it's like, the CFO's in Guatemala, he's going to come back in 2 weeks and we can't hire him without his say so. It's like that's gone now. So the speed, innovation and tech has definitely helped, for sure. But I would say people are hiring at a rate of knots at the moment. And, I would always say never hire off one interview, because that's dangerous for both parties. But, you need to streamline your processes for sure.
Are you seeing the same at Ketchum, Sera?
Yeah, I think there's definitely that need for a degree of kind of balance and flexibility. I guess for us, over and above obviously working with great partners and recruiters, it's also widening kind of responsibility for that kind of always on approach. I love a football metaphor. So it's also sort of like that always on kind of talent scout approach, and making sure that everyone in the business kind of has that mentality as well, right through to kind of, if you see some work that you like, who did that? Find out. That always kind of on approach, and always kind of having your eyes and ears open, thinking about that kind of accessing everyone's network, making sure that when people do come in or we see a short list, we've got that little bit of awareness as to kind of what might be good for the business in terms of, beyond kind of just skill set or CV. What do we need in terms of capabilities, how people are working, what kind of hybrid experience they've got in their background. And really, it goes back to some of the points we all made earlier. All of our businesses are evolving, so our talent needs are evolving too. And making sure that we've kind of got that wider network. We're looking in different places. I think, for us, if we all look in the same place, all of our agencies will look the same. So I think it's really that, going back to that, treat it like a competitive sport. Have that kind of signing wish list that every kind of good football manager has, right? Thinking about that always on approach is, really, really important for us as well.
Yeah, love that. Always
Yeah,
on
me
hopes.
too.
Brilliant.
Love that.
Yeah.
What's it like at Ogilvy, Ingrid?
Of course, like everybody else, we're looking for, we're always looking for talent and kind of growing, and so similar sort of challenges across the business. But I think, Sera, I really loved your point about being always on, and I guess for me, I kind of come to this conversation from more of a culture lens than a hiring lens, and I think that if you're looking to hire and your people are not bringing people they know into the business, and your only mechanism is pipeline on the day that a role hits or a big project hits, you are going to really struggle. And so really kind of focusing in on how do you create the right culture that retains people? How do you create the culture that actually allows you to retain those diverse hires that you mentioned, Sera? So if we're looking in different parts, and obviously, diversity and inclusion is a huge area that everybody's thinking about. And so often you hear, oh, it's about finding people in different areas so that we can create diversity, whether it's experience diversity or ethnic or gender. But what you don't hear anywhere near enough is when those people come into the business, how do you support them, nurture them, help them grow and develop, help them feel so comfortable in their role that they bring in kind of their wider network into the organization. And sadly, that stuff it's not a quick fix. It takes time. But is certainly for me the kind of thing to really keep an eye on that while we're all also kind of in this great hurry to scale the business to meet immediate needs.
And given your very large pool, Stephen, of potential candidates, given that you found the sweet spot in Sheffield, is it the same for you? Are you still having to move at pace, or is there an opportunity to slow down, or do you get staff to recruit staff, if you see what I mean?
We do get staff to recruit staff, and there are particularly a few businesses that we run into quite frequently where we've hired people from there. We've had freelancers from there. We always make a point of just going out for a drink or going out, taking them out for lunch when we first start after the first month of working together, basically, and say, do you know 3 people who you've worked with that you think would be a good fit here? And we basically just keep a league table. And some of our senior hires particularly have been headhunted from the fact that their name came up 2 or 3 times from people who just said, I've worked with this person, he, she, they are brilliant and actually would be really good to work here, but not necessarily, a member of staff putting their neck out to go and find that person for you and saying, yeah, absolutely, you should go get them. Just there's no risk in saying that I worked with this person and I think that they were good, and then we've got the opportunity as business owners to make that decision. But I think the risk point is quite pertinent, because recruitment is risky anyway. It's always risky. And to Ingrid's point earlier about bringing people on when the deal is done and the contract signed, and that in itself is a risk, actually, because you're risking the rest of the business, risking the rest of the team who are picking up that slack while you're trying to go and find someone. So however you want to do it, you've got to get comfortable with the fact that you're going to be, whether it's DEI and you're prioritizing things, because whatever you're prioritizing is at the expense of something else. You're investing, you are taking some risks in this sort of environment. And I think where that ties back into business development, particularly, it comes down to making some pretty risky decisions at the moment. And one of the things that we've done quite recently is we have found it very easy to win a client who will pay us £100,000 a year. We could go and win one of those a week, and have done for about a year and a half. And it's got to the point where we have made a decision. We can't staff that. There is no way that we can bring on people as fast as we can bring on business of that sort of nature. So the decision, again, coming back to that conversation and being comfortable with risk, is we have to start thinking every time we take on board 100 grand of business, that is at the expense, that is a seat on the bus from someone who could have given us £500,000 or £1 million of business. And that in itself is also a risk. But I think everyone's just got to get comfortable with the people that they are hiring. The risk is higher because they cost more. There's fewer of them. You've got to be comfortable with rolling the dice a little bit more now, I think, as well. So maybe that's a pace thing, but I think, to be honest, that's just everyone feels the need to differentiate themselves and get the right people for them. And they're just not going to be 1,000 of them, 1 million of them. There really aren't.
It's really super interesting what you're saying, because I also think that there is a bit of a challenge in balancing new business with growth. You can't, because otherwise you end up, over promising and under delivering. So you've got to get that balance right, and even hiring quickly doesn't solve the problem quickly. So it's that horrible bit which you sit on the seesaw of waiting for the next thing. So I love what Sera said and Ingrid said, which is always looking is a good start. Have you got any tips, Ali, for how you can plan ahead for recruitment, plan ahead for growth?
It's going back to the sporting analogy. It's you need to have people in your business, no matter how big or small you are, or it's your responsibility, where you're just focusing on your bench. You've got to be constantly, now we can all go out, have coffee, see people, meet people. It's so important that you're doing that. It means more to, even if someone's having a video call, you think, oh, I don't want to go into London today because I can't be bothered because I haven't been going in for 18 months. But you've got to make that effort. You've got to go and see them. You've got to go and actually, so when I say press the flesh, it's so important. So, building a bench, there's many ways of building a bench, but it's actually having a real focus on it. I'd say, obviously, take it back to the business development piece. They're now a rare commodity, to be honest with you. Good BD people are very rare. And I think when anybody, in terms of speed, you'll meet someone and think, right, they've got the black book, they've got the clients, I've done the referencing, here we go, we'll get them in, hire fast, but, give them time to be able to do their job. Don't set them massive targets and then the thumb screws start being applied on month 1, month 2, month 3. That's just not going to do anybody any favors. Give them a year and say, that's what you're meant to do. That's your roadmap. That's your target. So from a BD perspective, that is.
Yeah, I think that's across the board. I mean, particularly if you're hiring, as Stephen is, people without experience, it's also giving them breathing space to learn. Otherwise, they'll just fall over their own feet. Ben Potter has asked a lovely question, which I actually think is probably the bit I've missed. So I'm just going to interject with this. He says he'd missed the first few minutes, blah, 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 blah. Every agency I know is struggling to recruit right now. Is this due to COVID, or do you think there's a bigger issue at play here, namely skills shortage in our sector? Sera, what do you think?
I think it's a question that we probably could have dedicated the whole 45 minutes to be totally honest. But I think even kind of when we think about kind of due to COVID, that's in part the kind of what people are calling the Great Resignation, but is actually probably the great kind of reawakening or the great kind of reassessment. For it's different things for different people, right? Just people kind of having a look at where they are and where they want to be. I think the skills shortage thing is really interesting because I think it's a potential long tail to COVID, which is also, Stephen, you touched on it in terms of junior talent that should be 2 years further in terms of informal training, kind of absorption culture. Just we've got potentially a bit of a challenge down the line to make sure that everyone kind of has that level set as we kind of come back together, because I think that is potentially something that we haven't spent a lot of time thinking about. It's been about the immediate, there was a kind of great cut and now there's a great kind of trying to kind of recruit and get people kind of back in. But interestingly, I think when we think about capabilities a little bit further down the line, that's going to be a really interesting kind of part of this. It's competitive, as we've all kind of said.
Oh,
You're a
Right,
mute.
mute. All right. I think I've learned over the
We've all
last
been
2 years.
there.
But I wanted to talk to Ingrid because you've taken some thinking time, haven't you, Ingrid, for exactly this reason?
Yeah, it's so interesting. The question had a skill shortage in our sector, and I just thought to myself, which sector isn't experiencing a skill shortage as far as I'm aware? And yeah, so I actually personally took some time off next year for exactly this reason, and I think COVID has created this space to evaluate what is important to you. And through that evaluation has come kind of these, many people taking time off. And I probably know a handful of really highly skilled, really senior agency people who are not working at the moment, taking a bit of a sabbatical, whether it's from burnout. In some cases, it is genuinely, and it's no surprise given how brutal COVID was for many people in many different forms. But I do think, and I touched on it earlier about my real connection to agency culture, that if it wasn't for COVID, I may have had other reasons to stay and be absolutely happy in the role that I was in. And it was, by the way, a great previous role. But what happened is that with this extra time at home and connection to a very different lifestyle that didn't involve as much kind of out and about and this always on approach, that I was able to think this is not right for me. And actually, I value my time and my well-being in a totally different way from what I used to beforehand. And I'm sure those people who are fortunate enough to take that time, knowing not everybody can, but I'm sure that's also kind of playing a part into some of the challenges that we're seeing.
I can't believe that 40 minutes has flown by, but we've only got a couple of minutes. I wonder if any of you would like to suggest some tips or things that you should focus on right now, because there's a lot of agencies in pain looking for staff. What was the one thing that you would say, go do this tomorrow? Ali, do you want to kick off?
I would say thinking about what your USPs are, and also trying to make sure that the individuals that are coming into your business or you want to come into your business fit your ethos, your values, and being part of that family and seeing it as a family, even though people might be all over the place and you've got some business that are working from home, some businesses that are office based, but it is a family. So you've got to go back to the roots and think about that.
Stephen?
Fire your worst clients. All of the people who are draining your staff, draining your resources, whoever is just not great to work with, right now you can replace them with someone good. That they're putting the team that you've got in a place that they might not want to be in your business. We fired 5 clients, and I believe, are very fortunate to mostly have very, very nice clients who are good payers, etc., etc. But if you've got a client right now that's probably on your mind, and I imagine they usually are if that's the case, who you aren't happy with, get rid of them now. There's never a better time.
Love that.
Great.
Sera?
Love that.
I think design for diversity, access, and inclusion, and think about those 3 things, not one over and above the other. I think that whole where you're looking, how you're bringing people in and how you keep people, I think looking at that right across the kind of intersectional spectrum is really important. It's really important for talent, and it's really important for clients. It's no longer kind of, you can't get away with doing the bare minimum anymore. It's on absolutely all of us to act. And I think putting that front and center, it's certainly how we're winning as a business. And I'd recommend that everyone focuses on that and does the same.
Love that. Work hard, as you said earlier. Ingrid?
I would say create space for authenticity and dialogue. some of us are doing, this panel in our slippers, potentially. We're doing it in rooms within our homes, and there's this new space to kind of be more authentic than we've ever been before. And I think that's so important because everybody is going through kind of unique challenges, whether it's work or home or whatever it is. And I think creating that kind of space and openness for dialogue is really going to help people who might have a niggling, this isn't quite right, open up it. And that way you kind of create that right space and culture and keep the people in your business happy. And that will, in time, if not straight away, start to solve some of these other wider people challenges.
Terrific. So I think there's been some amazing tips here. So in particular, the ones that stood out for me is grow your own, as Stephen and Rise at 7 has done, and do so in a smart way. The D&I inclusivity is really important. We know it's important, but it's actually an opportunity for agencies to be more representative of their audiences, or their customer or their clients' audiences, should I say. That I think with my thing that comes across from you, Ingrid, is how much the mindset of our potential candidates and our staff have changed. And if you aren't talking to them and understanding how they have reevaluated their lives, then you're going to miss the trick. Because I would certainly say that the goals of our staff have changed, what matters to them, whether you call it work-life balance, the need to learn, to have a purpose, whatever everybody has individual needs. I felt like that was a hugely strong. And then finally, the point Ali makes, which I think anyone who's recruiting right now will know the pain of finding someone great, picking up the phone to the recruitment agency or direct and finding they've accepted another job. The speed of recruitment is phenomenal. And so I loved your smart way of thinking, Ali, to video and create a process to recruitment that allows agencies, large and small, to turn their attention to what they're doing in a nice short space of time, so that we can move things around quickly. So I think there's some really interesting insight. I think this problem is obviously going to go on for a long time. We're going to have to grow our own and hire like mad.
We're at the start of it.
Yeah, it's going to go for some time.
We're at the top of the iceberg, unfortunately. But I think there's plenty of people here that have experienced what we can do, all of us, to improve everybody's businesses. Fabulous.
Well, listen, Ali, Ingrid, Sera, Stephen, you are fantastic. Thank you very much.